Hello everyone. So today we will be looking at a passage that perfectly shows that how CAT VARC keeps on changing every year. So as we know, CAT is a pretty adaptive exam, and for those of you who have appeared for the 2025 examination must be well versed with the fact that how adaptive it is and how can things change suddenly. So some years you can find the passages are simple but the options are tricky, like this year. Other years the ideas are very dense and the logic is layered, but the options can be seemingly simple. So the crux of the matter is that VARC is not about English peculiarly, as a lot of you believe. It's about logic. You may not be very good at vocabulary or binding your thoughts together, but if you're good at logic, if you understand logic, and if you practice enough and give enough time to it, it just makes sense. So there's a passage. We will break down that passage. The passage is inspired by the CAT 2025 style. So let's delve into it. The passage below is accompanied by 4 questions. Based on the passage, choose the best answer for each question. The UK's gender pay gap has been underestimated for more than 20 years, according to research that could raise fresh questions about the quality of data used to inform key pay decisions across the UK. So it's talking about the gender pay gap here in the first paragraph, and it is telling that it has been underestimated, and due to that underestimation, a few key decisions have been impacted. The findings released in the British Journal of Industrial Relations on Monday suggest that since 2004, the Office for National Statistics, ONS, had failed to properly account for the fact that it received more data from larger employers when it reported its annual survey of hours and earnings. So this is the name of the survey, and this is what has come out, that it has received larger data from bigger corporations. That means smaller employers or corporations have been ignored. So that is somehow creating a discrepancy in the data. It meant the survey gave undue weighting to large businesses where pay was higher and the difference in pay between men and women was generally smaller. So because the pay was higher, the difference between the gender parity was smaller. As a result, it gave too little to smaller private businesses, particularly surrounding pay and representation for women. So the weightage given to smaller businesses was lesser and the weightage given to the larger businesses were more, and that has affected the representation in pay for the women. That resulted in the ONS consistently underestimating the gender pay gap. A small but noteworthy margin of 1 percentage point, the research paper said. So the research paper, which is telling that there has been data gaps by ONS, said that there is a small but noteworthy margin of 1 percentage point that has been underestimated, and that reflects the gender pay gap. The research paper's lead author, Professor John Forth from Bayes Business School at City St. George's University of London, said the data collected in this annual survey has far-reaching consequences across our society, informing everything from official pay recommendations for doctors and nurses to anti-poverty measures like the national minimum wage. It is therefore crucial that the data is a true representation of wages and earnings in modern Britain. So, Professor, who has published a research paper that is highlighting the data gap in the survey, has said that the main survey, the survey by ONS, so it is very important to understand that ONS is the survey being talked of here, not the research paper. So it shouldn't be confused. So, these are the little nitty-gritties that have to be paid attention in the first or the second read itself. Since it is a seemingly simple passage, it is suggested that with practice in the first read itself, or, when you are through the second time, you should understand this point. So this is what they are saying, that since the ONS has very large implications, like the survey helps decide the wages of the modern Britain and everything. So it is very important, and hence the data gap has to be well managed. The flawed data may have influenced key pay decisions. The same idea it is carrying. The ASH survey is used by the Low Pay Commission to monitor the impact of minimum wage and by the Office of Pay Review Bodies to help determine public sector pay settlements. So the ASH survey, which is the ONS survey itself. So this is also to be understood that it is the ONS survey only. And it is telling where it is used and what impact it has. So it has kind of far-reaching impact, right? It is the latest blow to the ONS, which has struggled with mounting problems that have forced it to delay or cancel several of its releases in recent months. So because of the research paper, it is a blow to the ONS, which releases this survey. And that is why it has to delay or cancel a lot of its releases. The ONS did not immediately respond to the guardian's request for comment, but told the Financial Times, like it did not respond to one paper, but responded to other paper. And it said that survey, sampling and weighting was under review. So it said whatever the mistakes are there, perceived mistakes, they are under review. And that the agency had improved its approach to survey since 2024. So since 2024, it has improved. And, they are just telling what they have done right, in a way that would address some of the issues raised on the report. So they are reviewing everything so that the issues raised in the report by Professor John Forth can be addressed. Weighting schemes are just one aspect of the methodology of a complex survey such as ASH, and we regularly scrutinize these methods to ensure they continue to be relevant and aligned to best practice. So ONS added this. It said that weighting schemes is just one aspect of the methodology. There are other aspects, and we are, reviewing all of them. So he is defending his point, the spokesperson for ONS, or whoever is saying on behalf of ONS. Forth is again the professor who released the paper, said that he welcomed the review, and he said, we encourage them to look at how the data can be made more representative of jobs in all types of organizations, in all types. So he's providing a solution. Like, we welcome what they are saying, and we encourage them that how can the data be more representative of jobs in all types of organizations. What is the meaning of all types? Like, very initially it was talked of, that only bigger organizations have been given higher weightage and the smaller have not been given. So that is what Forth is saying, that they have to look that all the jobs are represented in all types of organizations so that the issues that we observed can be addressed. So this is the solution he provided, and he said that. Okay, so now moving on to the questions. Question number 1. According to the passage, what has been the latest blow to the ONS? So when we see this question itself, we can quickly recollect that this word has been, this sentence has been used somewhere in the passage because it's in double quotes. So latest blow to the ONS. So it's here. It is the latest blow to the ONS. So what is? It's like, so it would be the preceding sentence, right? So let's read it once again. Flawed data may have influenced key pay decisions. The ASH survey is used by this and this to determine the settlements, and it is the latest blow to the ONS. So now let's look at the option. Gender pay parity that has been underrepresented by a margin of 1 percentage point. So it seems like right, because that was discussed that there is a pay parity and it has been underrepresented. Then option B, the flawed data reported by ONS's annual survey that overweight the contribution of larger employers that may have influenced key pay decisions. So this word is here, right? And this was used here as well. It is the latest blow and key pay decisions was used. The preceding sentence had it. So it seems better than this, better than option A, because it encompasses a more wider aspect. Mounting problems that have forced it to delay or cancel several. No, it is not the cause of the blow. It is what has happened after the blow. So this is what has happened later. So this is not correct. The denial by ONS to the guardian's request for a comment. No, this is not the latest blow. This is what again they did. This is something that followed up. So yeah, there were two close options, and we established that B has greater weightage than A. So it will be B. We can look at the explanation. So it's B. And as the explanation says, it precedes, this sentence precedes the blow on the ONS, and it encompasses everything. It covers everything that caused the blow. That, there have been overweightage and underweightage given to some aspects, and that has skewed the data. A is true. It's not false. Like, you will come across options. In CAT, there would hardly be options which are outrightly false, which are incorrect. Even all options can be true and right, but they can be showing the partial picture. So we have to be very careful. So this is true, but it is partially representing the answer. It is not talking of the entire impact that it may have caused. Option C is a follow through, as we said, and option D is again true, but it is unrelated. So everything that follows cannot be right. So yes, the learning from this is choose the most encompassing one. Many options can be true. Every option was right. There was nothing wrong with it. But the option which answers the question, there were two options that can answer, but there was one that covers a wider range. So we choose that one, and that is usually correct. Then question number 2. Which of the following Forth would most disagree with if false? So Forth, as we know, was the person who published the report, right? So he would most disagree with if false. So when it is saying if false, that means whatever the sentences are there, the first thing we should do is in such questions is you can take out your rough sheet and you can start noting down or scribbling. So we will make, since it is asking disagree with, so we will deal with the disagree part later, but let's make all the sentences false. Finding ways to make data more gender representative by accounting for gender pay gap. So just put not here. Not finding ways to make data more gender representative. Finding ways to make data more representative of jobs in all types of organizations so that the observed issues can be addressed. So not finding. Yeah, we can put not all types of organizations. Okay. The fact that ONS survey data does not have many consequences across our society and pay scales. So does not, we remove not. So does have many consequences across our society and pay scales. The flawed data may have had far-reaching impacts, but it would not have affected key decisions. Let's remove not, since we are talking of false. So we have put not in 2 options and removed not from 2 options. Now we will deal with the disagree part. Not finding ways to make data more gender representative by accounting for gender pay gap. So of course, Mr. Forth would disagree with it. That's right. Not finding ways to make data more representative of jobs in all types of organizations so that the observed issues can be addressed. Yes, he will disagree with it. So both are the contenders. The fact that the ONS survey data does not have many consequences across our society and pay scales. So it does have many consequences? It does. He agrees with it. It does have many consequences. The flawed data may have had far-reaching impacts, but it would have affected key decisions. Yes. He agrees with it. So these 2 options are cancelled because he agrees with it. He would agree with them. But most disagree with. Like since we have 2 contenders, it is again asking most. And again, we will choose a more encompassing option, a bigger circle. So the smaller circle would have just gender issues, which is option A. But the bigger circle would have data representation issues, which includes bigger corporation, smaller corporation, and gender, which is corporations plus gender. So again, we choose the bigger circle and option B wins. B greater than A again. Similar logic as question 1. So yes, B. As already explained, and the learning from this is star learning that in this would most disagree with if false, would most agree with if true. Always scribble something or write. Nobody would ask to mention the entire options and everything, but just scribble, add not, remove not, whatever the opposite may sound like, just do that. So this is the learning from these kind of questions. So these questions, I would mention that these kind of questions were asked heavily in CAT 2025, wherein the options were denser. The passage seemed easier, but the options were denser. And, most disagree with and everything. Now question 3. Which of the following best summarizes the entire passage? Best summarizes. So it's like summary question is asked in RC only. It has not been asked for many years, but it was asked this year. Summary sort of question in RC. So which summarizes it best? Which encompasses it best? The bigger circle, but no redundancy. In summary, we have to see that there is no redundancy. There is nothing that is being repeated, yet everything is covered. So in quest for bigger circle, do not go for the longest looking option because it may be redundant. But let's see. The flawed data by ONS underestimates the gender pay gap in the UK by a small but noteworthy margin of 1 percentage point. It is true, but it is not encompassing everything. The gender pay gap that has been underestimated by ONS data has far-reaching implications. It is again true, but it is missing a lot of point. It is just talking about gender. Where is the information about corporations, big and small? It is not talking about that. So we can sort of cancel them. Our research raises fresh questions about the quality of data to be used to inform key pay decisions across the UK. Hence, the data should be fixed. Right. The research is raising some questions about the quality of data. This is a good contender. Let's look at the next option and see which wins. UK's official pay gap has been underestimated due to an overweighing bias, like few companies are given higher weightage than others, favoring larger firms, that is also mentioned in surveys, impacting key pay decisions and highlighting gender. So it is talking about corporations, larger firms, it is talking about gender pay parity, and it is talking about what is needed to be done. So D wins. and D is the right option. Again, why not A? Because it partially mentions. Why not B? Because it is not showing a solution. Again, it is partial. C, it does not mention what questions does the research raise. It just mentions that there's a research. So again, all other options are true, but they are partial or half-baked. But one point to be noted is bigger circle, as I talked of, which encompasses everything, which was option D. But we have to note one small thing, that it should not have any redundancy or repetition. If it has, then we cancel it. If anything is repeated, even once, it is cancelled, and non-redundant option is chosen before over it. Now the last question. What relation? So now this question was asked in 2025. This kind of question was asked. What relation does this has with the facts mentioned in the beginning of the passage? So they pick a sentence from the passage and they ask what relation does it have with the facts mentioned in the beginning. So by reading so much and answering so many questions, we sort of remember what was mentioned in the beginning: underrepresentation, overweightage, gender pay gap. These three basic things, these 3 pointers we remember. So the sentences, we encourage them to look at how data can be made more representative of jobs in all types of organizations. So as we remember, this was discussed somewhere in the last. Fourth was giving some suggestion. We encourage them to look at how data can be made more representative. So this was the last para. So easy, not to crack. It was just the last para. So we can see. So what relation does this sentence has with the facts? What is the author trying to do? It provides a complete solution to resolve the gender pay disparity issue discussed at the beginning of the passage. Provides a complete solution. Extreme word. Full solution, complete solution, everything, all. So this is red flag only. So sort of cancelled. Endorses a corrective solution to the underestimation bias in the key UK survey, which has far-reaching impacts. So it endorses a corrective solution to underestimation bias. That is what fourth was talking of. That ONS has underestimation bias, overweighing bias, whatever you call it. And it has far-reaching impacts. So he is providing a solution. Sort of right. Advises firmly to the ONS on what is to be done to fix their data. No, it is not advising firmly. It is not being that strict. So wrong. Summarizes the problem discussed at the beginning of the passage briefly. No, it is not summarizing anything. It is giving a solution. So B is right. And everything was sort of a red. This was also a red flag, that advises firmly. No, it is extreme. It is not going extreme. Summarizes. This keyword is only wrong. It is not summarizing. So yeah. So correct answer is B. It provides a solution to, and then the learning is pay attention to the keywords. In these questions, pay attention to the keywords. It becomes very easy, like summarizes, solution, advices firmly. So these are keywords. So whatever matches is, you can come down to 2 options like this. 2 options would be use probably similar words, and then it can be chosen between the 2. So this is it. And this is sort of in lieu with what has been asked in 2025. These kind of questions, this was the question stem for 2025 passages. I will add a link to a workbook I created for VARC. It's like 40-50 page workbook. It just gives tips and tricks like this. So I'll add them in the description. And for any doubts, I will add the email and I can be reached out. And I hope this was useful.